Welcome to the PeakDay podcast, where we talk about faith, fertility, and natural family planning with our friends. Today's guests are Tony and Maria Lotz. Tony and Maria are both Catholic. They met on the dating app Hinge in 2023 and were just recently married in June of 2025 at St. Joseph Church in Cold Spring, Kentucky. They had both attended Northern Kentucky University and had similar friend circles, but they had never met there. They currently live in Northern Kentucky. Thank you, Maria and Tony, for being my guests on the PeakDay podcast.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. It's great to hear from young, newly married couples who just kind of fresh out of the engagement stage and now starting your married life together. So this will be fun to talk with you guys. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you guys met and maybe how faith has been part of your journey together?
So we met on a dating app called Hinge in 2023, and I had put in my bio that I loved talking about like being Catholic and Taylor Swift and Marvel movies, and you actually messaged me and asked me if I wanted to go to mass, and that was your opening.
Wait, I thought it had something to do with my little blurb too on there where
I thought your blurb was
what
funny,
what are Sundays for, and I just said God and football.
yeah. So we already had some mutual
Mutual energy
interests. But yeah, we went on our first date in the summer of 2023.
in July.
Yeah, and then started officially dating in August of that year.
So kind of from the beginning, you guys were both, you know, open and talking about your faith during your getting to know each other phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say right off the bat. Well, we can get into it more later, but she's always been pretty consistently Catholic. When I went off to college and everything, it kind of went by the wayside. I, at the time, still considered myself Catholic, but it was like make it out like once a month to church. Not proud of that, but um, meeting her did help get back to like every Sunday, make some time for the Lord, and it's been very nice. It's been very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So then you guys got engaged, and is it required in Northern Kentucky to take an NFP class, or what's the requirements there?
Yes, so you have to take an NFP class, but there's no specific method that you have to take. It's kind of up to the couple.
So that was that the first time you had either both of you had heard about natural family planning, or were either of you familiar with it already?
Just
I knew about it already. I had heard about it when some of my friends started getting married. In like 2020 was when a lot of my friends, or a chunk of them, got engaged. And so I heard a lot about NFP through their engagement process. Um, and I had actually started seeing a natural women's health nurse around that time. So I was even starting to dabble in like charting a little bit. So it wasn't totally foreign to me once it came time for us to do it.
for for me, it was more of a I'd heard about it as a alternative to um, uh, like birth control and all that kind of stuff, and that was about it, very surface level, just kind of another thing to do. And I mean, I'm a guy, so I didn't have to like really think about it, and then met her and have learned a lot more about it. But we can get more into that.
As a young, couple, do you think it's important for newlyweds or even engaged couples to learn natural family planning during their marriage prep?
I would say yes, just because at least how I've come to see it and what I've learned, even with the whole birth control or like like contraceptives and all that kind of stuff. They're how I just understand it creates this like false sense of like, oh, there's no way to get pregnant and everything, but with and then as possible you can still get pregnant because you're still doing the act, and that creates, from what I've heard, a lot of stress, a lot of like that's where a lot of arguments begin.
Yeah, it, I think it helps. It's kind of forces you to have to talk about it, and that was something that you do, like you practice. I think it's helpful to do an NFP course during marriage prep because it gives you the practice of talking about it and like the awareness of this is something we have to talk about and decide literally each cycle. Like what are we gonna what are we called to do right now? And so I think it helps set you up and have that awareness going into marriage so then there's no big surprises.
Right, right. Kind of gives you that common language, maybe, and that gives you that vocabulary that, you can speak, a little bit more freely about something that's not really an easy subject to a lot of people. So, Maria, can you share what it was like to maybe begin your charting? Maybe what surprised you or helped you the most when you started like observing and recording your cycles?
Yeah, I think it again was interesting for me going into it from an NFP perspective because I had been kind of tracking my cycle, just purely tracking for a few years. And so I already knew going into actual like practice of NFP specifically that I had really irregular cycles. And I already had some of that knowledge going into it. It just was getting to put it into a different kind of context of almost like a fuller context of like, oh, this is why I'm tracking and this is a it's it's just crazy how much that kind of ties into even just your day to day as a married couple of where am I at in my cycle? What have we decided to do for this cycle? Like, where are we at? Like, so I think just kind of adding those elements of, um, oh, this is, I'm still charting, but this is what these things mean, and this is what this phase means, and um, this is what's even how to communicate that to someone else who is a man and not one of my friends. Uh, so it's so far it's been pretty good. I feel lucky that I had some experience already, so it wasn't a totally foreign concept because it's still a little overwhelming when you're jumping into it, regardless.
Tony, was there something that was like challenging for you about the whole natural family planning process? Is there something that you guys really have to work hard on, or is it just mostly making sure you're doing your daily stuff?
I would say it's mainly just the daily stuff.
Mhm.
And I mean, she kind of alluded to it already, where it's where her cycles are a little irregular. Um, Knowing how to navigate that even with the app, there's sometimes irre- ir- irregularities in there, makes it a little difficult. Whether we're like, should we not? But kind of going back to the beginning of this, just like as long as we're both on the same page, whatever happens is whatever happens, and we're both cool with that.
So you spoke a little bit, Maria, about your irregular cycles. Um, so how has learning to chart and learning all about the the phases of your cycle, how does that help you navigate and deal with your irregular cycles?
I think initially it helped me understand a more fuller picture of what my cycle should be and how, and being able to like getting that initial knowledge of this is what happens after this happens, and like this is what's happening during this phase, and this is what causes this piece. um, it helped me kind of realize even more like, oh, this is like, even like I already knew it was kind of irregular, but realizing like, oh, this is like the phase specifically where like my body could be struggling. And so it's helped me in working with like my um women's health nurse that I've seen before, her being able to make recommendations for specific um like treatments or even medications for helping with the certain hormones that should be happening or should be increasing or decreasing in certain phases.
So your health practitioner has found, um, the details that you are entering into your chart helpful in like diagnosing and treating.
Yeah, yeah. And it's honestly makes it a lot easier when you can just take a chart to someone and ask them to look at it rather than being like, oh, well, I kind of felt like this and this has kind of been there. And it makes it a lot more um, objective without the stress.
Right, right. She's able to use it kind of as a diagnostic tool, really. Yeah, I imagine the more information you put into the app, probably the better, results you might be able to see. Well, that's great. Yeah. Eva alluded to this just a little bit, you two, but a lot of couples say that learning natural family planning kind of deepens their trust in God's plan for their family. Have you seen that kind of play out in your marriage too?
I would say so. I think it's especially kind of being newly married, um it's been nice to just be able to surrender that and just um especially with if we have children and with like our first especially, I think it's very like we're very much just like, okay, whenever it happens it
We're,
happens. And I think it's a mix of in I think in practicing NFP, it's a general kind of you have to surrender it, and I think even practicing NFP with the um, kind of struggles of my cycle too, it's like another element of like just kind of surrender. So it's like the whole thing is surrender, but then it's even more so. I think at least for me at times.
I would agree with that. Um, just because, like, kind of circling back to the other options with like birth control and all that kind of stuff, it's like with that, it's like you're trying to shoehorn your plan into God's plan, and like even with all that stuff, you can still get pregnant. So where it's very much like, oh, I was taking all this stuff using the contraceptives, but I still got pregnant. This is a bad thing. But with this, it's very much it's got God's plan, and if we get pregnant while we're in the non-fertile period, then it truly was like God being like, okay, you were ready. You were ready for kids,
Yeah.
whether you thought so or not. You are ready, and we kind of have to be like, yeah, we were.
Yeah.
What encouragement would you offer to women who feel maybe overwhelmed by learning to chart or understanding their fertility signs?
I think definitely just having patience with yourself and even with your fiance or husband, because it it's typically a totally new ball game for you, and it also is for him. And but I think just having patience and understanding that it doesn't have to be, and it won't be a perfect process at all. And you could have some cycles that are really straightforward and maybe others that aren't, and the just continuing to try and even viewing it in a trying to view it kind of from a gratitude perspective. I think it's easy sometimes to, as women, to get really frustrated, and even like I get really annoyed whenever my period comes and a new cycle starts, but it's also a gift to get to experience that as a woman. So it's just all, it's a lot of trying to give yourself grace, and that's something that I even need to do for myself.
Have you both noticed any ways that practicing natural family planning kind of has strengthened your marriage just beyond learning about your fertility as a couple, like more patience, better communication, teamwork, that kind of thing?
I think for me there is a feeling of teamwork, especially because I was doing it I was charting by myself for so long, and so now getting to include him in those conversations is really helpful for me. Um, and I feel like it again is just like a deepening of that trust where it's like I already knew that I could share anything with him, but now it's truly like nothing is off the table.
That's basically what I was thinking too. Like, if you can talk about this openly and just very straightforward, you know, getting a phone call from your wife that, like, I don't know, they're stuck on the side of the road, or I did something stupid or something like that, it very much becomes just like, oh, okay. Not like, what? It's it's very much just like you can talk about anything, you can talk about it however you want to talk about it, and there's no shame, no judgment. It's just both being complete open books with each other.
So, looking ahead, how do you guys hope that you can continue growing together in your faith and in your openness to life?
I think for me, I um, definitely struggle with perfectionism myself. And so I think my biggest thing that I want to continue to grow in is like giving myself grace and making sure that like I give it to him. And I think that's something I want to continue to grow in, like as we're married, of just um, continuing to be very like gentle in those things, like not put a lot of pressure on us or as a couple or individually to do a certain thing or be a certain way. And I think, especially as we um, continue to talk about our family and like timing and navigating my health as well, that we can just continue to not kind of, at least for me, like give up all of my ideas of what it should be or what would work out perfectly for us, and just continue to surrender that and be ready to accept whatever God has in store.
Have you guys been able to share NFP with other young couples? Have you had an opportunity to do that?
I definitely have had people in the past who have made the comments, who have like gone through it before, like know people who have done it before, and who have made comments of like that doesn't really work or it's not like a real thing. And so I have tried to even just present it to people as like, oh, we're doing natural family planning, like I'm tracking my cycles naturally, like just trying to mention it to people. And then if they do ask questions, be like, it does work. Even and even I think having the irregularity in my cycles and stuff has almost, even as like my cycles haven't been kind of like ideal, I still, it almost proves to me more how it's like, yes, like NFP, like it's based on the science of what is happening in a woman's body and like seeing all the things that do have to happen for conception to even take place. I'm like, this is like, it's, there's just so much happening.
You were saying, Maria, that even though your cycle is irregular, you still know where you are in your cycle, so to speak. You can tell like the phases that you're in.
Yeah, fairly. Sometimes. So- Sometimes like I it honestly depends on what is happening that month, and even how some of the medications I take are affecting me. And um
The biggest thing we've seen as a connector is stress, like
yeah.
leading up to our wedding, which, one of the biggest stresses that you could ever have. That definitely threw stuff. Yeah, that definitely threw stuff out of whack. And even us, we just were like, but after the wedding, things started.
And even it is helpful again being able to take kind of all of my charting notes and being like, this is what's happening. And uh, like my women's health nurse, her biggest thing is not being sure. Like I have some signs of phase two at certain times, but not, she's not sure if like everything that's happening during that phase like is actually happening. And so being able to talk through that with her is super helpful.
Yeah, that's so much better than just kind of being totally clueless about it and not having any idea at all.
And it was helpful for us to like talk about that too, like as we were preparing to get married, just being like, this is where my health is at, and this is like what the a piece to talk about along with just the general what do we want for our family.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck with everything. And I appreciate you being on the podcast so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you for having us.